You look at challenges, he was right up there with Jude Bellingham for most of the season. If they could get between 30 and 40 million for Manu Kone, that's just part of the game. And I think they'd accept that and use that money to make other signings.
Manu Kone, he's a midfielder. He plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach. What sort of player would Liverpool be getting?
They'll be getting a very promising player, somebody who has had a couple of solid seasons now with Borussia Mönchengladbach in the Bundesliga, somebody who, even at a club that struggled, has shone, somebody who's played consistently, and somebody who, if you look at the defensive side of the game, has worked incredibly hard. And, he's got edges to his game that need smoothing. There's no doubt about that. He picks up too many yellow cards, makes a few rash challenges here and there. But in terms of breaking up play, in terms of getting a team moving, that's something he can absolutely do. And if you think of what Fabinho does for Liverpool, for example, that's the kind of vibe you're looking at. He can get further forward, but he's not a regular goal scorer.
Do you think Gladbach are in a position to sell him, given they're mid-table and rebuilding?
I think they have to. I think they're in a position where Marcus Thuram's left on a free, Rami Bensebaini's left on a free, Lars Stindl's gone. If you look at saleable assets, they did have guys like Florian Neuhaus. He's taken a bit of a step back. Money is scarce. They haven't qualified for Europe again. So they're in a position where if they could get between 30 and 40 million for Manu Kone, that's just part of the game. And I think they'd accept that and use that money to make other signings.
How would you describe the last season that he had? Because obviously Mönchengladbach finished 10th in mid-table. Was he a shining light in that team?
Yeah, I certainly don't think his performances dipped massively. I think it's difficult because Gladbach are in a rebuilding phase. It was a weird season because Daniel Farke only lasted one season. I think we knew there were players who wanted to leave. That was always going to be a tricky situation, but he was consistent. I think what's impressive as well is his durability. I know he's only a young player, but you've got to bear in mind that he had an injury and it looked as though he wasn't going to make the start of the season. He hadn't been heavily involved in pre-season, and Daniel Farke had talked about easing him into that season, and actually he ended up hitting the ground running and playing. What I like as well is that he stepped up in big games. So if you look at their cup game, not the season just gone, but the season before, the cup game against Bayern when they won 5-0, he was excellent that night. I think the attacking side of his game is something that needs developing.
Obviously, Fabinho has got a good passing range. Maybe we've seen his form drop off recently, but he can step forward with the ball. Is that something Kone can do, do you think? Or has he still, as you say, yet to develop that attacking side of his game?
There aren't obviously many goals, many assists. I think he's somebody that has the potential to bring, he's more of a carrier, I think. It depends on what you're looking for in terms of what Liverpool's midfield is going to be, because I think it's really interesting to being linked with Gabri Veiga, who I see as really attack-minded. Kone, I think, is much more in the mould of what Liverpool generally want from their central midfielders. You look at challenges, he was right up there with Jude Bellingham for most of the season. He's got a lot of the qualities that Jurgen Klopp would want from a midfielder, including that insane work rate that he demands.